Lieland. Lieland is a place where there is truth, but it's distorted, where fiction trumps fact, where objective reality has been eroded, and you get confused and you lose your coordinates and you don't feel very good. You're full of cognitive dissonance because the external reality is not matching your map of reality, and it makes you feel agitated and anxious and possibly even irate. One of the first signs that you've slipped into Lieland is agitation that comes from nowhere. You don't even know where it's come from. You're just feeling agitated. The second one would be that you are finding yourself, to your horror and to your shame, focusing more on form than function. Form is good. Aesthetics are good. Making things look nice, it's all good. But when form trumps function, when the appearance is now trumping that which the thing's purpose is or its objective is, you've got a problem. You're not in a good place. So agitation, a focus on form over function. The third thing would be where you notice yourself prioritizing feelings over facts. You've started to ignore facts. You've started to push facts away. You're almost treating facts like there's some sort of an enemy at the gates that needs to be rebuffed, and what's being prioritized are feelings or opinions. In these ways, we're starting to slip into Lieland. Everybody's being encouraged to go to Lieland and to live in Lieland. It's way easy to control people if that's where they are. The fourth thing would be a lack of connection with core values, or even, a sense of bewilderment at the phrase core values. Like, what would that mean? If you have them, whether you choose to have them or not, you do have them. Every human being does. Some of them are not good, and that might not be your fault. That might just be propaganda, indoctrination. You can start to inculcate and live from junk values or unvalues. And so being disconnected from core values is also a clear sign that we individually, or us as a group, are disappearing into lie land. And the last one is kind of twofold. It's punishing yourself or punishing others for telling the truth, and or trying to squeeze truth into a new frame where it doesn't belong and it's uncomfortable. These are all clear signs that we are disappearing into lie land. So I want to make this video about things that are private and personal, and things that are a little bit more group and maybe, dare I say it, political, but perhaps with a small p, where I would say that this is an example of Willy Wonka's corridor. It's Gene Wilder was Willy Wonka, not Gene Hackman, which is in a video recently with Pierre, I said it was Gene Hackman. If Gene Hackman had played Willy Wonka, that would have been extremely sinister and terrifying. There's the scene in the old Gene Wilder, Willy Wonka, that I grew up with, where he goes into a corridor and it's an optical illusion, and the further down the corridor you go, the smaller the walls become, until Gene Wilder is crouched down in his, his funky purple suit. That's where we are now. That's where we're going. And people have said to me after the last few videos, like the CIA video did really well, and I was talking about 3 signs you're in a toxic relationship, and then wound up talking about the principles of Hermetic philosophy, and people really, really liked it. So obviously I feel like I'm being given a lot more free range at the moment. And the fact really that I'm even concerning myself with what people like and don't like shows you that I have slipped into Lieland, because I'm now trying to grow the YouTube channel. Wow. What for? Well, because I'm writing a book, and when I write the book and take it to a publisher, the dopey fucking publishers who, They're little more than book merchants. Okay, fine, we know that because they're publishers, but forgive me my romantic notion that goes back. See, I'm born 1978, but the world that I lived in was the world in the 80s. There was bits of academia and literature that was still stuck in, you know, times that have really gone by. And I thought publishers were gatekeepers, you know, and they were, that's a term that I got from Sam Vaknin, a gatekeeper in the terms of like quality control, and they really aren't anymore. They're just book merchants. And it doesn't matter who you talk to. I've spoken to Penguin, and yeah, it's basically a case of, it's pretty raw. I've spoken to a company in Los Angeles that's like a spin-off of an internet marketing company, and they just sell books. And I've spoken to Penguin, and I wish I could tell you the conversation was dramatically different. I got boiler room style hustlers from Los Angeles and Penguin in London, and it's, you know, how many books can we sell? And I go, great. What do I need you for then? But I slipped into that. I slipped into saying, okay, well, what are people responding to? Which is good marketing. It's what you're supposed to do. But then another part of me is going, I never did that. When I started this channel, the videos that were popular was me in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, in a crappy apartment, in the happy garden, with monkeys fighting in the trees outside, sweating my ass off because we couldn't afford air conditioning, just talking about whatever I wanted to. And that's what worked. So I also have slipped into lie land. So like many of these videos that I make, this video is not just for you, it's also for me, just to remind myself to be careful. When people responded to those videos, they said, well, okay, well, what can you do? What are you supposed to do? Where's the sort of like the prescriptive element to this? And the prescriptive element to this is, I'm not really sure why other people see it as being a particularly complicated situation. That's honesty. I really don't see why people see it as being complicated. I suspect people are telling themselves it's complicated. And this is the old Slavoj Žižekian logic of the fetishist split, so they don't have to do anything. So that they can, oh, it's so complex, we're in the middle of this huge matrix, it's a conspiracy, all those guys up there, they are the ones with the power, I have nothing. He even spoke about that recently. These jokes, he was telling jokes about the people fighting over the right to say, I am nobody, and that we're all nobodies. And this is how we've wiped out our personal responsibility, by saying we're all nobodies now. And that is the state that we're in now. We're all nobodies. There's no response. I'm just, you know, everybody's fighting for the right. Oh, I'm just, you know, and I do it as well. I'm just, you know, just some guy. Just It's like, well, okay. Never ever complain about the state of the world then. Shut the fuck up. Because if you're nobody, then be nobody. Then just stick to that. It's an abrogation of responsibility. And it's not really acceptable. And it's a kind of toxic passivity that has infected me as well. So my worldview would be, well, there's nothing I can do. These things have been in place for a long time, long before I was born. There's nothing I can do. And then I looked and I asked questions and I said, is there anything I can do? And I went, yep, there's stuff I can do. There's stuff we can all do. It's not very complicated. It's not, you know, the film The Matrix is also an example of the fetishist split. It presents the idea that we are literally inside of a machine, that it's a physical prison with tubes, you know, up your bum and up your nose, and you've got no eyebrows and no hair. And it's just not true. That's just not true. That the only way the Matrix would make sense as a metaphor would be when you showed the people shaking hands with the machines, having sex with the machines, and then saying, you know, cheerio, thanks machines, and then getting in the pod. I mean, how much of my liver juice do you need? Oh, we need, oh, it's fine, I'm going to sleep. Can you give me that really nice simulation in which my life is one? Yeah, sure, you can have whatever simulation you want. Okay, night. That would be a metaphor for what we have now. We are willing participants in our own enslavement at this point. Very willing participants. there is really not that much that would make a big difference. It's only a question of living in accordance with a certain discipline, which, when religion is not being used to herd people to all jump off the cliff in the same coloured robes at the same time of day for the greatest profit, Profit, of the assigned prophet of the day, truth, which is not religion, that is really just the opiate of the masses, as Marx said, which anybody who denies that that's how it functions today is either an idiot or a priest. I mean, who would deny that that's predominant purposes? But true religion, the religion before that probably deserves another word, maybe, you know, a mystical discipline, or the way of the initiates, the way of whatever it is. I mean, I'm listening to a lot of stuff to do with the Bogomils and Gnostic philosophy at the moment, where you had to be active. It couldn't be mass produced. There's no way Bogomil practices could be mass produced. There's no way Gnosticism could be mass produced. There's no way that you could just be like, oh, passively everybody goes and says a few words. Did you do it? Yes. Well, you're all right then, aren't you? Is that it? Yep. It's like a really, really shit version of a system of initiation and a discipline inside of which people need to live. Now, I'm not saying you need to become religious. Depending on how you interpret the word adjective religious, you're like, well, it has to be faith. Possibly not. But you do need a discipline. You can't just carry on the way you are. Or you can, but then you slip into lie land. And maybe you're comfortable in lie land. Maybe lie land is the place to go. You know, just keep blue pilling me until I quietly pass away, which is fine. It's fine. I am not like, I'm not a bully, and I don't think you should, you know, shout at people and be like, just admit that the temperature of melting steel is too high for a plane explosion to create, which was me for years, for at least a decade of my life. It's like, what's the fucking melting temperature of steel? Idiots! And now, you know, I won't talk about it. I just there's no point, because it's not the only person I'm responsible for in that regard is me. So it's my life, it's my brain, it's my time, it's my responsibility. That's the correct way to look at this. So I'd say, well, when we play this game of saying there's nothing we can do, or there's only one thing we can do, which is to protest, which is to riot. I'm like, what is this? What is this? Riot? You're going to protest? You mean like when they occupied Wall Street? What are you going to do? Join Antifa? What the fuck? What for? What masturbational nonsense is that? There's really nothing to be done. And when I say there's really nothing to be done, has anybody considered or shared the idea of what would happen if we all quietly and calmly, without screaming, without screeching? I've worked for years with the British Riot Centre. I know what they're capable of. I helped to train them at times. So they can only deal with people who are screaming and shouting and ranting and throwing bottles, or they can pretend you are if you're not, if they want to get rid of you. They can pretend you're screaming if you turn up. You don't need to go outside. You don't need to go in the street. All you have to do, very calmly, very quietly, we all get together and we say, listen, we don't like this, and we'd like some changes. We'd like some changes. You go, well, how do you pressure change? And I'm like, what? This isn't complicated. Just look at it from a systems thinking point of view. You're saying that there are people in power who are leading us down a pathway that's not very nice, that's exploitative, that uses our time, that uses our attention, that harvests our data, that harvests our energy, that rips us all off. And why do they do it? Because they're playing a game. That game is called capitalism, okay? And what are their points in the game? The points in the game is called money. The more money you earn, the better in the game you are. Okay. So the only thing they care about is money then? Well, yeah, there is only money. Okay, so hit them in the money. But I, alone, I could not. I'm too small. I am nobody. Well, hang on a fucking second. Hang on a fucking second. So what would happen if a group of people came together and they said, okay, we're not happy with this. We want some changes. And we know we can't force you. We're not going to use force. We're not going to riot. We're not going to protest. But we're all going to agree that we're going to not buy anything for 24 hours. And that won't be a big deal when there's 1,000 of us doing it. But when there's 10,000 of us doing it, and 100,000 of us doing it, and then 1 million of us doing it, and then 3 million of us doing it, and we say, you know what? We're not now just going to not do it for 24 hours, we're going to do this for 2 days. We're going to do it for 48 hours. Nobody purchase anything. Stock up, have everything in the house. I'm not saying turn off your gas and electricity, just live your life normally. Just live as you normally would. Fill the car with petrol, keep going to work. Don't not go to work. Don't give them an excuse to take what little cash you have away or throw you in jail. Just don't purchase anything. Just go, that's it, we're not purchasing anything. And you'd be thinking, well, what the fuck is that going to do? A lot. A lot. The whole system is in a very, very delicate state of balance. And over time, if enough people catch on to it, just how delicately balanced the system is, these little bumps, they start as little bumps, little bumps in the graph that gets slowly bigger and slowly bigger, can make huge, huge changes over time. But you would have to get together with other people who are like-minded, and then you'd all have to agree to it, and then you'd have to stick to it. It's only the discipline required to not consume for a period of time. That's it. That's all it takes. And outside of that, when it comes to the mental health issues, when it comes to the relationship issues that this channel really has been focused on, that's gathered the most number of people, though it wasn't the channel's original intent. The channel's original intent was to teach people how to protect themselves and to assert themselves, but it's become about abusive relationships. Escape from Lieland. That's it. You would never have gotten into any of those relationships had you lived in accordance with a discipline that was rooted in your core values, that caused you to live in congruence with those core values. You would never have gotten into those relationships if you were living in accordance with a discipline that caused you to tell the truth at all times, at least to yourself. It couldn't function. It's only through temptation. I'm not becoming a covertly religious person. Yes, I'm aware of the snake in the Garden of Eden and the Shaitan, Satan, devil, Lucifer is the great tempter. Yes, I am aware of the subtext of what I'm saying. But the temptation is, there you are. There's a degree of nobility, a degree of righteousness there. Would you come here? No. Would you come here a little bit? Maybe. Just a touch. Just a little bit. Just for a minute. Would you just step off that path that you're on and come onto this path for a second? It's a little bit easier. It's a little bit nicer. Okay. But I'm not staying with you on that path. I'm going to go back to it. That's all it is. It's temptation. And this is why I want you all to accept the love of Christ as your Lord. I'm kidding. Relax. If I was going to be that guy, I would let you know first. I wouldn't wait 18 minutes into the video. I'd tell you at the beginning and waste your time. But that's I think why I have such a strong Christian following and such a strong Muslim following, because you go, well, this guy's a total heathen. They shouldn't be listening. Should be listening to him. But it's not that there's a doctrine, an implicit doctrine that melds with the religion, but for the people who are trying to actually live a religious discipline as mystics. That is what a mystic is. That's somebody who lives the religion as it breathes, a living, breathing religion that you wrestle with. They're people I respect. I don't agree with the worldview. I don't agree with the cosmology. I think it's not right for me, but I respect that. And they know that. They know that. So Lieland is just a step away, and it's a temptation away. And the only thing that can fight temptation is a boundary. And a boundary is always a way of saying no. That's why people love that course that I put out called The Discipline. I'm probably going to do another one of them. It needs a discipline to say no. It needs a discipline to be able to say, okay, this is my structure. Your structure and your discipline is not there to make your life a bummer. It's not there to be a party pooper. It's there to protect you. That's all it is. That's all it is. It's there to protect you. Or it is not a discipline. I was talking about helping people to develop a moral philosophy as a means of conquering toxic passivity. So I'd ask people to answer what I consider to be relatively simple questions, like, why don't you have a go at writing down what you think good is versus what evil is? Why don't you have a go at writing down what you think living a good life should look like. And then finding myself totally stunned that most people couldn't even get past 2 sentences. They had no idea. And all I would say is don't feel attacked, don't feel criticized. It's not that. It's that I want to protect you. My first job is self-protection instructor. The life coach thing is like way after that. My first love is martial arts. It's not psychology. I'm kept alive way more by martial arts than I am by psychology, believe me. But this is just where it's at for now. It might not be next year, but at this time, this is where it's at. I'm trying to protect you. You are so fucking vulnerable if you don't have some kind. So I say moral philosophy, and people go, moral and philosophy, boo, shit words, blah. Okay, let's try. A value-based discipline of thinking. So that instead of just approaching life's problems like a bowl of blancmange and just going bleh, which means that everybody else tells you what is of meaning and you tell nobody anything, at least of all yourself. You're constantly receiving meaning. That's what I said with the toxic passivity course. Don't be a wank sock for culture. Don't just receive meaning and have it shoved into you and put and play. This is what it means. Well, okay. How do you know? Well, the man in the hat told me this is what it means. Well, how do you know? Are you going to challenge that? Are you going to fight with it? Are you going to wrestle with it? Are you going to actually oppose it, confront it, pick it up, shake it, see if it has validity? No. Not today, I'm tired. Well, you're doomed. Like you're not even a fully functioning human being in, if you go back through time and you look at the different philosophers, they're fusty old guys. Nietzsche's got a weird looking mustache. I was reading a bit of Adler this morning and he had strange beliefs about this and that. But you've got to try and find something that is of use that can protect you. And they had an idea of humanity. They had an idea about what people should look like. And pink, skinless, eyebrowless, muscle atrophied receivers of pipes inside a matrix pod was not one of them. That was considered, I can't even remember the phrase Nietzsche used, like just mindless, brainless masses of people ready to have somebody else's ideology shoved deep up them. And they wouldn't even complain. They'd actually say, thank you. It's masochistic. It's ultra submissive. It's ultra submissive and ultra masochistic. This is where I've come to with this whole thing that everybody's trying to wrap their head around with the way everything's tipped towards the left. But it's not even the left. It's this weird fringe, radical, ultra militant radical leftism that was always like some weird niche. And now that weird fringe niche has become mainstream. Why? Because we can't say no anymore. We've lost the ability to just say no. They were always there. We used to ignore them. You're supposed to ignore people who have really, really strange, outlandish, bullying, fascistic, everything is binding with them. Everything is, make it smaller, give them less. Smaller. Well, I want to say this. No. Less time, less freedom, less space. Everything is about binding people up and attacking their freedom. Why? Because we can't say no. They were always there. They were always there. And you go, it was feminism. No, even before that was feminism. That level of consciousness, that frequency of consciousness was always there. But previously they would have used religion as the stick. They don't care about anything. That level of consciousness doesn't care about women's rights or minority group. I don't give a shit. Any stick that they can pick up to beat people over the head with, they will do. And they were the religious nutters of days gone by. They were the lunatics of days gone by. And the stick that they would have beaten you with would have been the Spanish Inquisition. Or whatever came before that, or whatever came after that. To that extent, friendly old Robert Anton Wilson wrote a book about this, and it came out in 1994 that I cited in my dissertation when I was at university, called The New Inquisition. These people, that level of consciousness is it's never about what it says it's about. Yes, we love God and we believe in the Lamb of God, Jesus Christ, the Lord of light and love. And if you don't believe in him too, we're going to pull off your fingers one by one with these red hot pincers, because that's what Christ would want. That's where we're at now. They're almost exclusively, or you could even say what's symptomatic of that point of view is they express the opposite of their proclaimed beliefs. Always. They've always been there. The canary in the coal mine for humanity and where humanity is up to is how much we listen to them. So in medieval times, when the Inquisition took off, we must have been weak. We must have had a lot of toxic passivity, probably from too many centuries of feudalism, too many centuries of a very passive, dogmatic mode of experiencing our religious beliefs, whatever. These people are always there to test our boundaries. They're always there, and right now we are failing because we have these weak boundaries, because we're living in lie land, because we're not choosing truth. So that's my simple solution. Everything is simple. The way out is simple. We want to pretend it's complicated. It's so, you can't, because of the thing. And then there's words like the adjective problematic. What does that do to you when people say they find something problematic? I'm like, why do you use these words? They have their own weird, I find this analysis problematic. I'm like, oh God, here we go. I know what's next. Somebody's going to be tortured. Then they're going to confess to their crimes publicly. Then they'll be dragged. Do you see how medieval everything is now? Then they'll be dragged through the town square whilst people throw rotten vegetables and filth at them. This thing of drawing people? I only found this out recently because when I get insomnia, I look up weird historical facts. Drawing somebody, not when you remove the intestines, but when they would draw them on a sled backwards. In England, where that came from, is because they're putting your head where your arse should be. So even in the horror of these torturous moments, there's still this sense of humor. You're inverted and being drawn across the town square so people can pelt you because you made a bad choice. You made a poor decision, and they're going to show you how bad your decision was because your head was where your arse should have been and your arse was where your head should have been. That's why they drag you around upside down. That's us now. It's an inversion. We live in inverted times. That's why the more in the Abrahamic religions, they'll be saying like these are the end of days, because if up is down and left is right and right is wrong and virtue is a sin and sin is a virtue, then that's by definition, according to their books, that's what the end of days is. I agree that there are inversions. I agree that we live in a time of junk values. So I've given you 5 ways of identifying that you yourself might have started to slip into lie land, which I have. That's why I said that not everybody was here for the beginning of this, but you can watch it on playback. I've slipped into lie land. I've slipped into form over function. I've slipped into wondering what the effect of what I'm saying is, instead of honing the essence of what I'm saying, the authenticity of what I'm saying, so that it will have impact on individuals. Because what my philosophy coming into this back in 2013 with this particular channel was, I'd rather have 100 authentic, engaged people listening to me than 10 million people who are just nebulous, specious idiots. Nebulous. I don't know that that's the right adjective to put there. Okay, I'm going to take some questions right now, so feel free to ask them, make them 1 sentence long and end them in a question mark for make of easy of me. Thank you. Human Life Experience says consumers. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. The consumer mindset makes people very, very malleable and very, very easy to control. How do you set goals when you feel worthless and feel like you deserve to feel bad? If you're feeling worthless and you're feeling bad, that's usually an emotional flashback. So I recommend dealing with your emotional flashbacks first. Will you star in Lie Lie Land, the musical? Yes, you write it, I'll sing it. When will the book be available? I hope by, well, let's say May. Let's say May. Do you like blancmange? I do. I do like blancmange. I haven't eaten it for probably since I was a kid, but my memories of it were very fond. Where will you be standing when the flash hits? There's a comment here. How do you handle being punished for doing the right thing? Well, you know, it's one of those things in life that happens that's an injustice, and it's frustrating and disappointing, and I, like you, would have a whole series of emotional responses to it that I need to, you know, get on good terms with. I need to be on good terms with my emotional responses. I need to be on, you know, fluid, literate terms with how I'm feeling. And so the predominant way is to, the first part of that is to deal with the feelings that come with it, because those feelings can be very, very strong. And then seek justice. Seek justice from a mature perspective and act in congruence with your core values. Figure out what your core values are. If anybody needs help with that, just go to a list of, you could do this now. Go to a list online, say list of core values. Find one that has like a couple of hundred. Pick out your top 10. Write them down with a pen and a piece of paper. Actually physically pick up with your flesh digits a pen, and then find a piece of paper, or the back of an envelope is fine, and then write down 10 core values, and then pick out from them your favorite 5, and then order them in order of priority. And now you know what your core values are. It will change over time, that's okay too, but at least you can have in consciousness what your core values are, and you should be acting in accordance with them, not against them. When you're acting in accordance with your core values, everything is better. Good times are gooder, and bad times are easier to deal with. When you're acting out of congruence with your core values, everything sucks balls. That's how I deal with it. Serendipitous Synchronicity says, hello, hello. Are you aware you're getting better looking as you mature? That's very kind of you. Thank you. Thank you. Can you believe yourself again after believing all the lies? Yes. How do you break through creative blocks? I am not an expert on creative blocks at all. I have the opposite. I have the tendency to overproduce material, so probably you should speak to somebody who's better with that. If you were a client, I would want to explore with you that what we're calling a creative block really is a creative block and not something else. One of the things that I would be looking at is your unconscious aware that what it is you're trying to do is potentially risky and dangerous, and that's what's stopping you, and the unconscious is trying to protect you. If that was clear, then I would explore other avenues. Do you feel more grounded and able to help after you changed your ways? I don't know that I have changed my ways. I don't know. I've always had something to offer to help people with, but I don't know that I'm particularly way changed. Sorry for touching the screen, I have to scroll up and down. Joe Friendly asks, what would you recommend the average person do to fight the growing threat of socialism? I don't know. I don't know. I don't really know that idea holds water. I'm not sure that there is a growing threat of socialism. There are growing threats. And it would be easy to say, well, everything is being pushed in the direction of socialism. I would say it's all being pushed in the direction of 1984, which was Orwell's warning against a particular, end point of socialism that wasn't good. but it's not, I'm not against necessarily socialist policies. I think you can put socialist policies in place. I just wouldn't want to live in a truly socialist society myself. But to use different language, I do believe in being kind to people. I do believe in helping people who are oppressed. And I do think some people are oppressed. I don't think that's a fantasy. I don't think that's a socialist fantasy. I do think, for example, there are racial issues in society that need to be addressed and that need to be equalized. I am, in that regard, there's a difference between a classic liberal and a social liberal, and it sounds similar, but they're very, very different. I'm not big on handouts, because through coaching people and through studying psychology with the intensity of somebody who has insomnia and needs stuff to read at night, I know all too well just how poisonous a victimhood mentality is and a handout mentality is. And that, a civilized society should help people who are oppressed and who are struggling, but a responsible society really should be encouraging people to do as much for themselves as they can. And when they do, should not be punishing them for that. They should reward them for that, so that you have an impetus upwards. So protect people and then demand that they be strong and resilient. That is where my approach to mental health issues has a little bit of a difference to a lot of other people's approach to mental health issues, in that it is, I don't just focus on where things have gone wrong. I'm trying to focus on strengths and say, listen, this video is a video about critical thinking, in case y'all missed that, to encourage people to think more critically, to encourage people to think in terms of their core values, to encourage people to become more resilient and more disciplined, because I come from a different model of what's going wrong. I don't like the model that says mental health is a virus, or it's genetic, or it just happens and then we just need to medicate you, or we just need to, I hate all that, when it's because there's so little evidence for it. And there's I'm talking science now. It's not a theory. It's not my own dumb opinion. The evidence suggests that actually people's lack of resilience can make them anxious and it can make them depressed, for example. And if we teach people skills and strengths towards resilience and discipline, they become mentally healthier and happier and freer and more engaged and more positive, for example. Why ignorant people are so confident and how to deal with friends like that, it's called the Dunning-Kruger Effect, and you should look it up. Yes, ignorant people and stupid people are confident because they lack critical thinking, so they never sit there and go, hey, maybe I got this wrong. Imagine how wonderful that is. You just never, I couldn't possibly be wrong. Like, no, I'm not wrong. I'm right. I'm doing what everybody else is doing, so therefore I know I'm right. And this is all there is. Say the cattle. Mike asks a question. Ooh, this is going to take us in a new direction. A new direction. How do I handle being cheated on? Wowie. I'm so angry. I just can't stop thinking of her with this other guy, and it makes me murderously enraged. Obviously, don't commit an act of violence, because that would be illegal. And that would put you in prison. And I don't know what country you're in, but well, it doesn't matter what country you're in. There isn't a country where prison's awesome. They fairly universally suck. So you definitely don't want to be doing anything that is illegal or that could get you banged up. Being cheated on is, I've experienced it 3 times. It's a very, very, very painful betrayal. The only thing that you can do, your initial gut level instinct, your primal instinct, will be territorial, will be rooted in a testosterone, adrenaline mindset where you want to do something to sort of rebalance the hierarchical drop that you've just experienced at the hands of 2 people who consciously did something that caused you to drop in hierarchy, that actually the caveman brain is understanding as a threat to your survival. Well, what do you do when you're in a threat to your survival? You respond by fighting, fawning, running away, or freezing. It sounds like you've gone into a fight response. So don't hate that. Accept all of that. and tell the truth. Keep telling the truth. You've come here, you've said this, so you've told the truth. You said that you're extremely angry. Good. Keep telling yourself the truth about how you feel about this. There is going to be no other way, however, of moving on to this and you loving again and being happy with somebody else and living the rest of your life that is going to come from moving any steps down that path that the primal caveman brain is telling you to go down. It's not, no good will come from even one step down that path. And one step down that path would be stalking her on social media. One step down that path would be following him to his place of work. None of it. None of it. Don't even take a step down that path. The only thing that's going to help you to move in a good direction is for you to take all your toys, all of them, all your time, all your care, all your love, all of your attention, take them back and to move on. Somewhere else. You take them and you move on. You go elsewhere with the intent in mind that you're going to live a good life. That's what your brain, your emotions, your adrenaline is like, no, I need to attack the threat. It's like, it's a falsehood. There's no threat. There's not really. Not really. This stuff happens. Humans do this. It is this way. It is what it is. It hurts. It hurts a lot. But don't act on these feelings. You're going to have a lot of very, very difficult emotions come up over the next 3 to 6 months. It's going to be a painful time. It would be good to get help. It would be good to be talking to somebody about this, and particularly just dealing with the emotions as they come up rather than the story. So your brain will also trick you by saying, look at the story. Think about what she did. Think about what he said. Think about, forget all that. It's just your feelings. That's it. Just focus on how you feel step by step and move forward. And I wish you all the best with that, because it is a painful experience to be betrayed in that way. Peter Guerrero, which is a good name, which means warrior. The world needs more dudes like you, Richard. Thank you for doing what you do. Thank you very much, Peter. I appreciate that. Joe Friendly says, I love someone with BPD and strong narc tendencies. Am I wasting my time? Because she's pretty textbook. You're not just wasting your time. You're potentially damaging your self-confidence. You're potentially damaging your samangat, which is a Malay word that my Malay friends laugh at me for saying because I'm saying it wrong. But that's okay. Yours can keep laughing at me because I'm going to keep saying it like this. Samangat. Right? So that means your intent, your joy, your thrivingness, your will to just be you fully, to be the best you, the fullest of you-ness that you can be, because there's only one of you, and really that is your job on this planet, on this reality at this time, is to be you. And she's going to mess with your focus on that job, and she's going to mess with your ability to do that job, because when we're in a lot of pain and we're traumatized, the energy that we express weakens and it gets twisted. It's really not good. So you're not just wasting your time. It's not just like, oh, I found an interesting way to pass time. I'm doing a bit of, I don't know, gambling, or I don't know what it is, like some pointless thing. It's not just doing that, my dude. It's hurting you in ways that are subtle, in ways that are corrosive, in ways that, depending on how long you spend with her, it might take you years to see. This was what was true for me, and this is what's been true for all my clients as well. It's like, you know, it really does a lot of damage to your self-confidence. You're probably already self-confidence damaged, and you won't realize it, because like a mosquito, when it sucks blood out of you, if it's doing a good job, you won't feel it do that because it shoots you with the anesthetic before it puts its needle in and drinks your milkshake. And then you itch afterwards. I think that's a response not to the suckling. It's a response to the anesthetic. Your body goes, ugh, don't like this. So you only realize when you're itching afterwards. So you probably won't feel how much is being drawn from you until later. So yeah, you're more than wasting your time. Stay away from it. Joe says, you helped me realize I'm codependent. Yeah, codependency is possible in this situation, and it's one of these things that we can fix and move past. Alma P says, you sometimes mention Illuminati. Well, somebody's paying my rent. What do you think? I'm not Illuminati? Damn, son. Tell us what you really think of it. Aren't those exactly the narcissistic, heartless beings of our world? Well, I don't really know what you mean by it. There was a group of dudes that were called the Bavarian Illuminati that formed, I think, in 1777. And there's been secret societies, there's been clubs, there always has been, there always will be. I think I've cited Robert Anton Wilson earlier in this talk that was supposed to be 25 minutes, is already at 45. And I like the way he spoke of it, which is, you know, the idea that there's one overarching global agenda, I think we need to be careful, because it's appealing, because it means there's somebody in charge. And the more terrifying view, the more terrifying existential view, is that there isn't even a global matrix. There isn't even a global Illuminati. There's actually way more chaotic than that. But are there power elites with dire, dark agendas for humanity? 100%. 100%. Do they function in the way that one would typically talk of Illuminati functioning? Yeah, sure. We know about, what are they called? Bohemian Grove. You know, presidents and politicians getting together and wanking each other off into coffins and pretending to kill children and maybe even killing children. You know, that's not even a conspiracy theory. That's a matter of historical record. What was the president who got himself into trouble and he refused to go to Bohemian Grove? Tricky Dick had comments about Bohemian Grove. He acknowledged it and he said, I'm not going. He said something very rude about it. He was like, I'm not joining up with you weirdos to dance around in a cloak. So, yeah, there are secret societies and there are cults and there's movements and there's you know, there's even a pretty good hypothesis, more than a theory, or not a theory, a hypothesis that World War II was actually begun as a war between battling secret societies. But then you go, well, where do you draw the lines? Like, if Winston Churchill and his homies are meeting up in a room and organising this with these directives and this, and Hitler and his homies, are they secret societies, or are they, like, you know, because they're associated with? So it's like, I just don't want to be childish about it, because it's so tempting. It's so tempting to go, ooh, you know, and other world, and I'm like, nah, it's probably just a group of dudes with a lot of power. When I was first looking at joining the army, I don't know if you've ever seen the film The Kingsman. I'm not recommending it. It's not great, but it's kind of funny. It's like a piss take of James Bond. And I was going to join as an officer. They actually took me to a place in Liverpool that you entered through like a secret door. And then you went up some stairs, and it was like old dudes in a gentleman's club. And we had lunch, and it was other officers from other military units and judges and politicians and people with a bit of sway, and you kind of go, well, this is probably okay, but this is probably all it is. Do you know what I mean? And that means a lot, and it means a little. There's still always going to be human frailty, vanity, ego, vulnerability, mistakes, bias, prejudice, lie-land-ishness, because these people are like, oh, we believe in the ultimate truth, which is that humanity is just sheep and they should all be herded around to do this. And it's like, well, that's still lie-land. That's just your lie-land. That's still like a blue pill versus a red pill narrative, because it's missing out huge pieces of the map that are right there glaring in the face. You go, no, I'm not going to look at that. I'm just going to ignore that. So in their own way, they are just as stuck in a certain sense as the people that they dominate. So yeah, I mean, people will ask me that because I had thumbnails like this or like this, but that's just a childish provocation. Its intent is amusing, but you get some people online who don't get out of the house very much, and they're like, oh, he's the Illuminati. What does that mean? What do you mean? I never joined the army. I've been very open on here about trying to join MI5 a few times, and they eventually told me to piss off because I'd lived in Malaysia. They said, you can't, and you go, you can't join MI5. Yeah, you can. You can go online now and try and join the CIA. It's all out, it's all open, but people think, they get weird. They get, because I told some of my friends I tried to join MI5 and they went, how did you even find the interview? It's like they were advertising in the local press, you fucking idiots. It's not, like the world doesn't work like that. It's just people, stupid fucking entities, meat sacks in socks trying to do things. That's all there is. That's the bigger horror, is like nobody really knows what's going on. For MI5, I don't know if it's still up there, but if you go and look up joining MI5 now, they have a really, or they did 18 months ago, a really fun, really interesting online test to see whether you would have the acuity to be a good MI5 operative. And it takes like 20 minutes to answer these questions and fill out a questionnaire. Go look it up now, it's good fun. And they'll give you a mark out of 5 for whether you're right for it. And I passed that. And then I spoke to somebody via email and they was like, did you live in Malaysia? I was like, yeah. How long for? About 3 years. They said, if you've lived in Malaysia for more than 3 months, we will never, ever, 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 ever consider you for this job. Ever, ever, forever, ever? And they went, yeah, forever, ever. I was like that. Because of the radicalization issue. Malaysia is apparently one of the centers for radicalization in the world. Not northern Pakistan. Who knew? And because I lived there for more than 3 months, my card's marked. I get pulled every time I go through passport in the UK. I can't scan my passport. You know, you have these new machines. I get pulled. I have to be seen by a human every fucking time. So yeah, I'm really, I said in the beginning, like everybody's saying they're a nobody to abrogate responsibility, but in this one, I really am a nobody. What are your thoughts on HD Tudor? I wish I'd had time to listen to more of HD Tudor. You said HD, it's HG, it's HD Tudor. He sounds like somebody that I used to know, and he keeps his identity secret. So I'm not sure if he is the person who I think he is, but he might be. But it doesn't matter. As far as the material goes, the little bit that I listened to was he made it rhyme, which was good. It helps people to remember. It was and it was a good like allegory. It was he said start small to avoid the fall. And then he gave the example of narcissistic boundary pushing as being like thin slicing of a salami. But because it's so thin, you don't notice it. So what his advice was that when you see it, even a little bit, was to stop it so that you don't fall later on. And I was like, it's good. It's good stuff, man. It's good stuff. There's a lot of good stuff out there. I spoke to, via email, Lisa Romano last week. I'm going to interview her on the channel. Your man there who runs a channel called Narcology or Narcology Unscripted. I'm going to interview him hopefully in the next month on the channel. There's a lot of people putting out good information. So yeah, I'll take one more question and then I'm going to go. I want to quit tobacco. What the hell? I want to quit tobacco. I've combat PTSD. I'm still getting over a BPD-X. What? Fiance, should I quit tobacco now or after I get over my issues? Do you know, when I was going for the army, I wanted to join the parachute regiment. You said the way you spoke, it kind of indicated that you're American. So you know, you're airborne infantry. We have parachute regiment, and I quit smoking 2 weeks before I went for the test. And I really, really wish I hadn't. And there were PTs there who were smoking as they were doing they were like, you shouldn't have given up because your lungs are acclimatized to it. I struggled. I was coughing up evil, the hounds of hell. It's a coping mechanism, right? So let's be realistic here. It's not going to be the case that you're just going to get over your BPD-X, because that isn't, like, you've compartmentalized and gone, that's my issue. I'm going to get over my BPD-X. That in and of itself, borderline personality disordered X, is going to take some time, and you will need to change your whole philosophical landscape in order to do that. Your whole moral landscape in order to do that. because you were attracted to her in the first place, and then you stayed with her for a period of time to the point where she became an ex that you're now struggling to get over. So part of your healing process and your reconditioning process is going to involve reconditioning everything in the landscape. And that's the way you should try and view it. See it as a 6-month project. I would be working very intensely on your emotional literacy, on stopping the emotional flashbacks. If you've become too reliant on tobacco, and you're saying, oh, this is too much now, I'm smoking too much, or I don't know, actually, are you taking the tobacco? You might be chewing it for all I know. Then you're saying, okay, one of my coping strategies is actually going too far. So there's a systemic issue. So rather than being like, okay, we're going to deal with this and deal with this without addressing the system, I'd say deal with the system first. So the best way to get systemic transcendence or evolution and healing is through emotional literacy. Is through actually becoming more emotionally literate. And that might mean doing a fairly in-depth emotional literacy map every day for 30 days, and then every 3 days for the next 3 months, to really get you to the point where you are in training and drilling, and you've got your standard operational procedure drilled into the unconscious under moments of stress, so that when stress comes up, your first thought is not, who do I need to punch in the face, but is, okay, what am I feeling? What is this feeling trying to tell me? And when we've shifted you from who do I punch in the face, or how do I like hide, or how do I run away, to, okay, stress, what am I feeling? What's this message? What's the message I'm supposed to be receiving right now? Then there'll be a big systemic change, and I would hope that the tobacco would fall away, that you just wouldn't need it anymore, that you just go, right, so now you're probably masking like an ongoing feeling of rage or an ongoing feeling of anxiety with the tobacco. And it works, man. That's why you do it. That's why people take drugs. They're not idiots. They do it because it works. It has a function. So that would be my recommendation. Is an interesting question. Nobody nowhere says, one thing I have noticed, all of the life coaches themselves are never able to form healthy relationships. Are there any in YouTube that have actually been able to do that? I don't know. I wouldn't ask that. That's none of my business. I would, if I were you, I'd take what was useful from this free medium and, leave the rest. Leave the rest. It wouldn't bother me. It wouldn't bother me if a life coach or a psychologist was or was not inside of a relationship. If they were in an abusive relationship, okay, I would want to know. That's a problem. But if they're choosing to be single, that's all right. I do know. Well, I know of at least one life coach who's she just has chosen to be single, and it's a non-neurotic choice. That's just what she wants. So yeah, fine. That's fine by me, man. Fine by me. Vitamin C says the messenger does not have to be perfect for the message to be relevant and helpful. Very true. Holly says, how and why do we like Lieland? We like Lieland because it offers us pretty lies to protect us from the ugly truths. And it's very easy for the brain to get tricked, to get tempted into thinking, I'm safer with a pretty lie than I am with the ugly truth. And it's we kind of give up on ourselves and give up on reality in a way. You just go, well, what's the point? It's all nastiness. At least this feels good, or it looks good, or it gains me status, so I'll do this instead. And that's what the majority of humanity has done. If you go on social media, if you go on Instagram, that's what you'll see the majority of people have done, is they've just gone, well, there isn't anything else. We've really, as a species, hit a philosophical dead end. We really do need we can't have a new religion. You can't do a new religion, but we do need some sort of an ideological or philosophical makeover because we are at a dead end where you just go, well, I'll just look good. There isn't anything else. So that's why we do it. That's why we do it. It's too hard sometimes to deal with the ugly truth of reality for some people. But I think that's a mistake. I think the better way and the path to salvation, he said, sounding spookily woo again, the path to salvation, to the extent that there is any kind of salvation, is to accept every truth, every single part of it, all of it. Radical acceptance, as described by Marsha Linehan. Yes, is that right? Yes, Marsha Linehan. Or extreme ownership, as described by Jocko Willink. It's the same principle, and it has the same results. You can either heal really well, or you can have way more sovereignty and agency in your life. But it's the same thing. One's yin, one's yang, but it's all part of the same polar scale. So accept it. Just accept it, all of it. That's how you move forward. Radical acceptance and extreme ownership. What is the emotion of feeling ugly or disgusting trying to tell me, says Anna Davis. What do you think it's trying to tell you? If you feel ugly and you feel disgusting, what do you think it's trying to tell you? What is that? Where's that coming from? Is it an emotion or is it an emotional flashback? They're two different things. An emotion is a authentic response to that which is here now, and an emotional flashback would be, it's like backloaded, unprocessed, undigested, calcified emotion from experiences from a long, long time ago. And that sounds like what other people have identified, other psychologists have identified as toxic shame, just overwhelming feelings of being unacceptable. And so it would need to be handled as an emotional flashback. But what I would do in terms of emotional literacy as well, so hit it from two angles, is I would have the words feeling disgusting in the middle and draw a circle around it, and then do an entire emotional literacy map that gets into the nuanced feelings behind that, and write it all down and really explore it and go deep into it. And you'll probably find that these are messages from a traumatized childhood that is causing you to experience this emotional flashback of self-disgust and ugliness. And it's an illegitimate feeling. It's rooted in nothing. It's an illegitimate feeling to the extent it's illegitimate in that it's a bastard. It has no parents. There's no parents in reality. It's a feeling that is a PTSD flashback that is just manifesting in the emotions. That's what I mean by illegitimate. Dr. Bradley's emotion code work. Yes. What if we are just creating ideals and not accepting the real brutality of life? Indeed. Becoming aware of the processes does not necessarily mean they should be changed or that we have control over them. Indeed not. Where do I start to heal my CPTSD? You can start with Richard Grannon, the Spartan Life Coach. He runs a YouTube channel. Yes, you go and say it's very overwhelming. It is. The best place to start, where you can get some immediate results so that you even have the headspace to be able to think about the subject, is if you go over to my website, spartanlifecoach.com, put your email into the email collecting thing that's there. We'll send you out a course that helps you to stop emotional flashbacks straight away. You get that course straight away. It takes about an hour and a half to read, to watch the video instructional that's in it, and to listen to the audio that's with it, but then you will know what the exercise is. The exercise takes about 30 to 60 seconds to do. I would recommend that you do it 5 times a day. 30 days back to back, all of your emotional flashbacks will diminish and you will feel calmer and more stable, and then you've got the headspace to think, because when it's really, really strong, you can't even think straight. It's hard. Okay, ladies and gents, thank you very much for your time and your attention on this one. I hope that you found that useful, and that I will have convinced some of you to point more in a direction of authenticity, telling the truth, living in a more truthful way. And the most important thing is, there's two really important things. One is to always tell yourself the truth, and the second is to always try and live in accordance with your core values. If you haven't figured out your core values, do the core values exercise that I described 20 minutes ago. Thank you very much for your time and your attention, and I look forward to speaking to you all again soon. Cheers.